The Second World War was fought between the 1st of September 1939 and the 2nd of September 1945, and was the biggest and most destructive war to date. Between 75 and 80 million people were killed as a result of the war, and around 70 million people fought in the war. This 6-year period of history is one of the most interesting and complex periods of all time, so in an attempt to better understand history, we're going to dispute some popular myths about the war. Germany could have successfully invaded Britain. After the evacuation of France, Britain was only a short sail across the channel from the Nazi regime. Around this time, the Battle of Britain started, pitting the RAF and the Luftwaffe against each other in large bombing runs and dogfights. During this period, an invasion of Britain was seemingly inevitable. However, was this really the case? Before the invasion of France, the German army stored a strength of about 2.5 million soldiers. After the invasion was complete, the German army still needed time to recover from the fighting. At this time, Germany sought to crush its closest enemy, Britain, but due to the English Channel separating France and Britain, and with the British having a formidable navy, the Germans couldn't invade it even if they wanted to. The Germans also sought to make peace with the British by demoralizing them, weakening their military and making them seem isolated in Europe. This would have added the benefit of avoiding a full invasion, saving Germans valuable time, money, and equipment. In order to do this, the Germans used their superior Luftwaffe to bomb both military and civilian targets. However, despite the Luftwaffe's efforts, the British ended up winning their campaign, ruining the Germans' plans. By the time 1941 rolled around, the German military was preparing for Operation Barbarossa, or the invasion of Russia, making their ability to invade Britain impossible. There is no doubt that at one point in the war, it looked as if Britain came scarily close to invasion, but in reality, there was never a point where successful invasion was possible. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the most destructive bombings of the war. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are notable due to them being the first atomic bombs used in warfare and their destructive nature. However, these were not the most destructive bombings of the war by a long shot. The bombings of Dresden and Tokyo were far more destructive. The bombing of Tokyo alone killed 80,000 to 130,000 civilians, left over 1 million people homeless, and destroyed over 250,000 buildings. Compare this to the 129,000 to 226,000 people killed in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined, and it is clear that Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't any more destructive than any other bombing raids during the war. Germany could have won the war if... By the time Operation Overlord happened in June of 1944, all hope was effectively lost for the Nazi regime. But even long before then, the Germans were already destined for failure. It is extremely doubtful that one or two changes could have changed the course of this complex war. Simply saying that Germany could have won the war if they invaded Russia earlier, or Germany could have won the war if they had attempted an invasion of Britain, is a large stretch and likely incorrect. The Allies' victory was never assured, but neither was the Axis'. The US won the war. On the 11th of December 1941, only 4 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Germany declared war on the US. This led to the arrival of US troops in Britain in January of 1942, before being deployed in Operation Torch in the Middle East in November 1942. US troops served in various places in North Africa and Italy until June 6, 1944, where US troops participated in Operation Overlord, along with British and Canadian soldiers. Around the same time, US troops also fought in the Pacific Theater against the Japanese. Group this with the US giving land lease to many nations to give them valuable equipment for the war, and the US looks like a mighty superpower during the war. There is no doubt that the US contributed heavily to the Allied war effort, but they were just as helpful as any other power. Over 16 million personnel served in the US Armed Forces between 1939 and 1945. Compare this to the 1.5 million British and Commonwealth personnel and 34 million Red Army personnel, and the US war effort becomes more viewed as a team effort. The French were bad fighters. We've all heard of the old joke that the French were bad soldiers during the war, but it was often the contrary. Whilst the structure, equipment, and doctrine of the French army during World War II was extremely ineffective, the bravery of the individual soldier was not any less than other nations. On the 10th of May 1940, the German army started an invasion of France, using blitzkrieg or lightning warfare tactics. At the same time, the French army was still using World War I tactics and equipment. When the invasion started, the French army had twice as many soldiers as the German army, at 5 million soldiers defending against only 2.5 million soldiers. At the time, a successful and brilliant 29-year-old composer and organist named J.R. Alla was shocked at the invasion, and subsequently joined the French army as a dispatch rider in the 8th Motorized Armored Division. On the 20th of June 1940, he was assigned to observe the German advance on the east side of Samoa. As he was riding his motorcycle around the corner, he heard German tracks and jumped out of his motorcycle, engaging the enemy and killing several soldiers before getting killed himself. For his bravery, he was awarded the Croix de Guerre. He left behind a wife and 3 kids. Only 6 weeks after the start of the invasion, Germany successfully invaded France, resulting in the French government being under control of Germany. Due to this adversary, the French resistance was established, incorporating guerrilla tactics and espionage to disrupt the German war effort. The French resistance worked closely with Allied soldiers and conducted frequent raids on German military locations. On the night of June 5, 1944, the French resistance raided various locations in Normandy to help Allied soldiers during the beach and airborne landings. As a result of this, divisions were set up consisting of French citizens and exiled soldiers. In October of 1944, an 18-year-old woman who was the daughter of a World War I veteran named Colette Niouche enrolled as a nurse in the French First Army, disguising herself as a man named Evelyn Meunier. Soon after joining the army, Niouche became a soldier, fighting in the forests of Uberwald with male comrades. Due to her courage, she was affectionately called Joan of Arc by those who served with her. On the 12th of November 1944, she was killed during the Battle of Uberwald, but her remains were never recovered. Due to her being under a fake name, she was also not properly reported as dead. One of her comrades named Otana Kulbizol never forgot about her courage and compiled evidence of her brave exploits, pressuring the French government to give her the recognition she deserved. On the 30th of August 1985, Colette Niouche was awarded the Croix de Guerre for her brave acts. The French had many honourable soldiers during the war, and even though they were defeated at first, they were equally as honest and brave as the soldiers of any other nation. What did you think of the video? Was there any myths you believed or any myths you think we missed? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.